Okay. The intention of this demonstration is to let everyone know about agency views and where they are and how they could be used in AASHTOWare project with the different areas and functionality they're in. So a little history here is Rachel is the agency view infotech lead on the MnDOT project. So Rachel, I'll let you go ahead and start this off.
Yes, hello. Yeah, agency views at MnDOT have been a really exciting and interesting project because MnDOT is taking them further than almost any other agency that I'm aware of. Mike Alaski that Gina just referenced, he and the rest of the team are doing really incredible things with their custom code and making these perfectly suited for MnDOT's business processes in a way that I don't think other agencies are really, they're not really doing. So will you click to the next slide, Gina?
I just gave you control.
Oh. Click. Click.
There you
go. Okay, what is an agency view? This is the definition, the true definition. It's a means for an agency to build their own components for a set of identified locations in AASHTOWare project. But that doesn't really mean a lot to a lot of people. Essentially what it is a way for an agency to define the models and the fields that they want to see on a particular screen and to create a way to extend the functionality of AASHTOWare project. So often we have fields that already exist, we have models that already exist in the system, but there are workflows outside of that, or there is data outside of that that an agency needs to capture. And particularly in the area of materials testing, that is true. The system doesn't come with a stock set of tests. An agency has to identify all the tests that they perform and then define what data they need to capture, store, report on, send information out to other stakeholders. So all of that has to be done, and it is done through an agency view. Currently, you can associate an agency view to 7 different places in the system. We call these places entities, but it just means a model or a record. So right now you can associate them to contracts, to daily work report item postings, to acceptance records off of your daily work report that we looked at yesterday a little, off of sample record tests for your materials testing, on mix designs, something called a mix design component, which is just a material that goes into your mix, and something with a really crazy name, a daily source report production material SMI record. That just means a batch of material that is being documented as it's produced at a source on a daily source report. So for your first area where you can associate agency views, which is a contract, you're essentially capturing data that is at a high level for the whole contract, maybe your contract punch list, maybe a list of different contact information for your contractors, and they're added per contract. So we're kind of showing where you would make that association. You can do it on the contract progress summary, which is shown on the bottom left-hand screen. And you'll add your agency views to the contract, and then they'll be available from the main global, not global, but the component action menu, which is at the top of that blue bar there on the right-hand side. Anyone who has access to the contract will be able to, well, by role, you can control who can see those agency views, but it's intended to be available for people to access data for the contract. Your daily work report item posting. There's a kind of complex way that you create this association. First, you associate the agency view to your reference level item. And then when you create your contract and you have put items onto your contract, you can import all of those agency view associations to the reference item onto your contract item, and then make that available for that particular contract item. You can make that agency view required so that anytime you create an item posting, your user has to go into that form and document something. Agency views can, of course, perform calculations, as we've said, but you can also pass information back and forth between an agency view and your system models. So in some cases, these agency views off of an item posting can be used to calculate what the quantity of the posting should be, or to send information even other places in the system, not even associated particularly to this contract, to notify other users or to update records. So the example that is being referenced here are pile driving notes.
Oh, sorry.
Did you take control?
I was using my I was using my mouse.
Right, and this is just going more into detail about what I was talking about. So here on the left-hand side, you can see an actual agency view populating data about your work item, and it's calculating posted quantity, and then that information is passed back to the posting, which is being displayed on the right-hand side. And then we have this note that explains that MnDOT is working on volume calculations, and they'll likely get area calculation agency views as well. So that's currently in your construction production, I believe, the volume, or they're working on that one. Okay. All right, and so now we're onto our daily work report acceptance record, and this is where we were discussing the ability to create records that can actually be used for material acceptance that can be populated from your daily work report, maybe by inspectors in the field. And here we're describing how you would create that relationship between the agency view and a daily work report acceptance record. This is done at the reference material level off of something called an action relationship. We're just creating essentially a relationship between your material and some kind of a documentation. So in this case, where the documentation is a daily work report and the agency view is this concrete water check. And then on your posting, when you create the posting, you pick the set of materials that's being used for that posting that day when you install on the job. And then for every material within the set, the system is going to create something where you can document more information, this acceptance record. Off of the acceptance record, you can see on the row action menu, the agency view that we had associated through that action relationship is available to select. So here we've got that concrete water check, and on the right-hand side, you can see it opens it up. And this one is very simple, very straightforward. We can make them as complex as you want. Although I can hear the agency view developers saying, stop it, don't tell them that. But this is a very simple 2 text boxes, just capturing some simple data in the field. Ooh.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and next is the sample record test. So there is a lot of data to make the sample process flow work. Don't have it all listed here, but a little bit of it. The first part is you need to add a test method agency view to a material or material category action relationship. From there, you can create a test assignment information record. There is other data, as Dina knows. For instance, getting the qualifications set up, the testing qualifications set up, and your code table values identified. So basically, you get the information set up, and then you're able to create a sample record. You assign it to a destination lab, and then after the destination lab's been assigned, you can assign the test to the sample record. Go into enter test results and then open up the sample record agency view. And here's an example of what one would look like. So when we do display and demonstrate the sample process flow, you'll see that whole process flow of how that can happen. This is an example of an agency view summary from MnDOT. It is a concrete admixture properties 002, version 2. So the sample information's at the very top area here. It's just brought over as a courtesy. So when you're in the agency view, you can see that information about the sample. You can see the test number and the sample record test information, this information here. And then the specification you can choose in here. This is something that is completely unique to Minnesota, something you guys have figured out how to do that other agencies are looking at right now. And so you've identified to include selecting the specification inside the agency view. Normally, like in the program, the generic functionality, you would select the specification on the sample record test reference specifications tab, which is quite a few extra steps and clicks to get to there. We made it very simple for your users to go to that section there and identify the specification and specification condition. Below this are the details. I'm going to click on the next slide to show you those. This is the detail information. Same page, you just have these collapsible subpanels here that you can collapse up above and below and work in. So here you can identify who the tester is and the solids information, add your test data or calculations, percent completes, specific gravity, pH, FT, and IR. And Rachel, I'm going to stop your remote control here. Hold on a second.
Morning, Gina.
Sorry.
Hello, good morning.
We're
Hi, you're on.
we're somewhat back cooked up here. Alan should
Okay.
be, hopefully we're hooked up. Alan should be on the line here in just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Ron. Thank you. Okay, so on the sample record agency view, sample record test agency view, so the lower section has even more test data. So, and you fill in the information. So that's an example of one of your agency views. I'm going to go backwards one screen so you can see the full picture again. The top of the agency view information, and then the bottom portion of it. So 2 slides to show you that. So I wanted to show you that in some nice detail there. Good example there. Then from Alan. Another area where you can have agency views associated at is a mix design. So an agency view can be created for each type of mix design that you have. So for instance, if you have super pave, Marshall, Beam, whatever mix design types that you have, PCC, you can create an agency view designed to include all the fields and information that you'd like to about that mix design. This is an example of a super pave mix design. It comes with the program, 2 columns. You don't see all the sub panels and the information like the other one, but it can be designed to be exactly however you would like to do. So what happens is when you come in to the mix design, you create a new mix design, and from the action menu, you can you come in and create the mix design, and you choose the mix design type, what type of mix design it's going to be, and in the action menu, you will display the agency view that is for that mix design type, and then you can choose it and fill it out. So it displays the agency views that are of that mix design type for that mix design. You can fill in the material and the source. This is in a demo site. This is not in the MnDOT site. It's very generic. And then save your information. You can populate your mix design information here. So that's one. That's just on the general tab for your mix design itself. Yes, there are attachments and links available here too as well. Adding a new mix design. Right here. We go to the next slide, and we have the component materials of a mix design. So the component materials are your materials that make up the mix as a whole. And for each of these component materials, you can have another agency view developed for that mix design type. So for instance, super pave mix design type, the component materials of that one would have a different agency view to populate. So here's an example. This is generic. So for a mix design component material for the super pave component materials, this is an example of what one could be like. I do have a note though, is that some agencies are actually coding their component materials and the agency view fields for the component materials inside of the main mix design type agency view and not even using this tab. This MnDOT's still looking at this area.
And there's also a message from Dina letting us know that the next phase of their aggregate and bituminous materials, they are going to create some mixed design agency views.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice, Dina. So that's a little interesting information there. And also just noting it ties to a contract. Your mix design is going to be tied to a contract. We looked at that yesterday on the progress. Contract progress, mix design tab, and the mix designs will show up on over there for construction, and they'll be here for materials. And on the sample record, you aren't using this piece yet, but on the sample record, you can choose the mix design type and the mix design. On the sample record, you're doing that test, that sample for. There's fields for that there too. So the daily source report material, source material identification, you can also create an agency view for that area. And why would you do that over there for a daily source report? This is for when you're at a plant or a precast plant or like a stockpiled area for a source, and you want to identify the materials that are being produced out of that source for that day. And you might want to do some documentation about the production material. And so I'll show you an example of that. So in order to set that up, you identify for a material like concrete, or it could be aggregate or oil, whatever you would like that would be at that source, steel, beams, precast concrete. You create an action relationship for that material, and inside of it you would want to choose the daily source report action documentation type. These fields on this component change completely based on which action documentation type you choose. And then you would choose an agency view that's a DSR agency view. Those would be filtered for that. So I do an example here for DSR mixed details. Here. When you go in, you create a daily source report. You're at that source, and you add a material to it that they're producing that day. They were doing like concrete, and you create an SMI record. So normally this would be SMFMI. MnDOT is not using facilities, so shorten it to SMI. Very nice. You can indicate that it was inspected by how you'd like to. You could even identify if it's been a physical test or a visual inspection, however you'd like. This is that batch of material that Rachel just talked about, like a batch of material you're kind of just tracking through the system. We mentioned it a little bit yesterday. And in the action menu, go down and through the views, and you can see that agency views associated to there. So you don't even have to go in and create a sample record yet if you don't want to. If you just want to do some documentation here, or even if you wanted to just even do some calculations into an agency view, you could. I'll go into there. Here's an example of an agency view summary with some mixed details. So material, unit information, your content, water cement ratio, slump, and then at the bottom it'd be like, hey, what's the volume of each mixed design component tested? This is just an example. And choose your components and information. So this is just another example of an agency view, what one could look like. Where else will they be? And AASHTOWare Project 4.4, pre-construction is going to have some. and the proposal, project, and vendor. Expanding out. Very nice. Questions? And does anyone have any questions? Let's see here. Don't see any in the Q&A here. And Mike Elasky, I was wondering if you would like to talk a little bit about your experiences with developing agency views. I can unmute you if you would like to. Okay, Mike, I just opened it up for you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't have my camera on because it's closed up in my laptop. So
Nice.
so you
That's
can't see me, but so my experience in working on it's been
Yeah,
interesting. I mean I've learned a lot of different processes and learned that there's a lot of functionality that can be designed into the agency views. So yeah.
nice. Thank you. And Rachel, let me see. Can you describe the agency view development process that's going in place with Minnesota? There's quite the a really good, solid process in the development of agency views, and what that process is.
Well, it's changed a lot from the beginning. There's been a lot of refinement that has happened from the beginning as MnDOT has found their footing and figured out the direction that they want to go. So currently the process is that as a team, they identify the next lab that they're trying to bring on, and they identify all of the test methods that need to be brought into AASHTOWare project and the different agency views that are needed to support them. And then they create what's called a submittal form, which is essentially a design form. Agency views are a little particular when it comes to the relationships between your different models and defining those models. And there are limitations to what they can do. We keep saying, oh, we can do whatever you want, but it's not entirely true. We have to work within the parameters of the design standards and within the parameters of just some tech limitations. So there's a big effort at the very beginning to identify what are those relationships going to be, what fields are needed, what calculations are needed, and then that all gets documented into a submittal form along with how the screen layout should look, what those different controls are going to appear like. And that gets passed to an agency view developer, which sometimes you have more than one developer working on the same agency view. For example, if there's a lot of complex code and calculations, we'll give it to Mike because he's amazing. And
Okay.
oh,
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Rachel. And later on, we have Suzanne and Karen are going to go through this process later too.
Oh,
and
okay.
have a presentation, and we'll go through that too.